Two armies face each other on a volcanic plain in the heart of Mexico. Both sides have trained for this moment their entire lives. Both sides have agreed to be here. In a few minutes, the fighting will begin. And here is the rule that governs everything that is about to happen. If you kill your opponent, you have failed. This is the story of Xochiyaoyotl, the Flower War. The war where killing your enemy was failure. The most counterintuitive military system ever devised by any civilization on Earth. And to understand it, you first have to understand the world that created it. By the mid-15th century, Tenochtitlan was one of the largest cities on Earth. 200,000 people on an island in a lake, connected to the mainland by massive stone causeways. Larger than London, larger than Rome had been 1,000 years earlier. The Aztec Triple Alliance. Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan controlled most of central Mexico through a combination of military conquest, tribute extraction, and something far stranger, ritual warfare. The Aztec universe ran on a specific fuel. Not gold, not grain, not tribute, though they collected all of those. The Aztec cosmos was powered by human blood. Specifically, the blood of living warriors offered to the gods, above all to Huitzilopochtli, the god of the sun and of war, who needed to be fed every day or the sun would stop rising. This wasn't metaphor. This wasn't poetry. For the Aztecs, this was physics. The sun required feeding. Warriors were the food. And that single belief explains everything about the Flower War. The Flower War was not a surprise attack. Both sides agreed to it in advance. Ambassadors negotiated the date, the location, the number of warriors. The rules were simple, and both sides followed them. You fought to capture, not to kill. A warrior who killed his opponent on the battlefield was not celebrated. He was, at best, pitied. At worst, disgraced, because a dead body was worthless. You couldn't offer a dead body to the sun. The gods required beating hearts. The technique required to fight this way was extraordinary. Aztec warriors trained from childhood, not to kill with a single blow, but to tire their opponent, control him, and force him to submit. To take a living man in combat with your bare hands against someone trying to do the same to you required a level of skill that most military traditions never even attempted to develop. The Macuahuitl, the obsidian-edged club that could cut through armor, was used not as a killing weapon in the Flower War, but as a tool of exhaustion. You wore your enemy down until he could no longer resist. Then you took him, alive. Here is where the Flower War becomes something even more remarkable. In the Aztec military system, your rank, your social status, your clothing, your house, your access to certain foods, was determined entirely by one thing: how many warriors you had captured. One capture, you could wear a specific uniform. 2 captures, better clothing, access to the warrior school. 4 captures, you entered the elite orders, the Jaguar warriors or the Eagle warriors, the 2 most prestigious military ranks in the empire. And there was a rank beyond even those. A rank so rare that only a handful of warriors in any generation achieved it, called Tlahuestli, the distinguished warrior, a man who had captured more than 12 enemies in single combat. He could wear the most elaborate regalia in the empire. He could eat in the palace. He could marry into the nobility. The entire social structure of Aztec warrior society was an incentive system designed to maximize one thing: the number of living captives brought to Tenochtitlan. The Flower War wasn't a side activity of the Aztec military. It was the engine of the entire system. Let me tell you about a warrior named Xochiyaoyotl, not the famous ruler of that name. A different man. A Tlaxcalan warrior, captured in a flower war sometime in the mid-15th century. We don't know his real name. We know what happened to him from accounts written after the conquest. When he arrived in Tenochtitlan, he was not thrown in a prison. He was given a bath. He was given food, better food than most Aztec commoners ever ate. He was given new clothing. He was given flower garlands. For several days, he was treated as an honored guest. He was permitted to speak with priests, to eat at the temple, to look out over the city he had spent his life fighting against. And then, on the appointed day, he climbed the steps of Templo Mayor. This was considered, in Aztec cosmology, the most honorable death available to any human being. Not because it was painless, but because it fed the sun. Because without his heart, the next day would not come. Here is what I want you to hold on to. The Flower War has been called many things by historians. A ritual institution, a strategic tool, a religious obligation. Scholars debate whether it was primarily cosmological or primarily political, whether it served the gods or served the empire's need to keep neighboring states like Tlaxcala in a state of controlled weakness. The answer is probably both. But here is the thing that is not debated. It worked. For over a century, the Aztec Empire maintained a formalized system of ritualized combat that both fed its gods and trained its warriors and terrified its enemies and maintained complex diplomatic relationships with states it had not conquered, all at the same time. The Flower War was not a failure of Aztec military thinking. It was a military system so sophisticated that it required an entirely different framework to understand what winning even meant. When the Spanish arrived in 1519, they encountered the Flower War and were baffled by it. Why would you fight a war where you couldn't kill? It took them years to understand that the question itself was wrong. The Aztecs weren't fighting a war where they couldn't kill. They were fighting a war where killing was beside the point. They were feeding a universe. The last Flower War was fought sometime before 1519, when Hernán Cortés arrived. When the world the Aztecs had built began to come apart, the institution dissolved. Tenochtitlan was destroyed. The Templo Mayor was buried under what is now Mexico City. The warrior ranks, the ritual obligations, the cosmological framework, all of it gone within 2 generations. But the records survived. The codices, the colonial accounts, the memories written down by priests and scholars in the decades after the conquest. And in those records, a war where the goal was not to kill, but to offer. A war that made sense only if you believed, with complete certainty, that the sun needed to be fed. If this video made you see a civilization you thought you knew from a completely different angle, that is what we are here for. Next week, we go to the city of around 2600 BC, and to a queen named Pu-Abi, whose tomb contained 74 people who died alongside her, and whose gold headdress still exists in the British Museum. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you want to go deeper, the sources, the behind-the-scenes 3D renders, the full academic bibliography. The link to Patreon is in the description. I'm your narrator. This has been Echoes of Civilization.